Hello and welcome back to my channel and welcome back to the third video of my TradeSkillMaster Deep Dive Guide series. In my last video we talked about the TradeSkillMaster Ledger and the TradeSkillMaster Dashboard. And today we're gonna talk about our TradeSkillMaster profession data, so our profession information like how do we add items to our queue, or how does TradeSkillMaster actually calculate its material prices and also our crafting costs, including our possible profit or our possible loss on an item when we would craft it. Okay, so I would say first of all a little bit coffee, and then we move to my character here on Blackmore Alliance with the Enchanter from Dragonflight. I currently don't use the War Within Professions at all, but it's still the same system like with resourcefulness and multicraft and all the other things. But you have to know one thing about crafting and TradeSkillMaster. Let's say we move to the TradeSkillMaster interface. We're going to talk about each tab one by one later on in a few minutes, but we hover over one of the enchantment. And we already mentioned the TSM crafting information. Here's example, crafting cost is at 41 gold and 10 silver with a profit of around 132 gold and 18 silver. This is the crafting cost, or in other names, the crafting source. So you could also, if you have a look at my chat here, use this little string here, the casting. Oh, good morning. Crafting. You could also use crafting as source. So if you want to use 100% crafting, you would like to use 100% of the crafting cost of a specific item. Okay, but you will only get the crafting information on the realm and also on the same faction where your crafter is online, so where your crafter is at. So this is where I mentioned before, I'm on my Blackmore Alliance character. I could use the crafting information about these professions here only on Blackmore Alliance, because I know on this realm and on this faction that I can craft these items, so I have the information only there. If you would like to sell the items, no matter which item you would like to craft, it's always the same. Let's say you want to craft something and you move then back to Draenor Horde, but you have crafted that item on Silvermoon Alliance. You won't get the crafting data. Okay, so please keep in mind only crafting data when on the same realm and on the same faction. Okay, so mentioned that. Now we have a look on all the different fancy tabs in here. Of course, if you have never opened your profession with the TSM interface, here is your little TSM 4 button to open the interface of TradeSkillMaster. Then we got the crafting tab, the gathering tab, report tab, restock groups tab, and some other informations like the recipe name, the craft column, profit, or even your DB region sale rate. Okay, so also here again on this enchantment you have a DB region sale rate of 0.132, and it also gets displayed in here. Okay, then you have the little tab in here where you could swap your profession. So I also, brainlag, have a Java crafter and a cooking, but it's not skilled yet, so we stay on the enchanter here. Then you got all your recipes here. You could also set some recipes on your favorite list, so they get displayed always on top of the favorite pattern list. But I will remove this one and also this one. Then you have, of course, the craft column. It displays how many items you could craft already based on the materials you have left in your bag or in your bank, as example. Then you got the profit column, of course. It just shows the average profit you would get if you crafted like that now, with based on the crafting costs currently, and if you would sell it based on the DB min buyout, or in my case maybe also the DB market, but we are going to talk about this calculation later on in this video. Then you have the 3 little points in here, and here you could also change some stuff on your window. First of all, you could also move all these columns in here if you want to swap something like that, but you could also resize them, okay? But you could also lock the columns in here, so you can't do anything, but I don't recommend it at all, because you could also, give me a second, you could also add another information, like the crafting cost as column, the item level, or maybe also the percentage amount. You could also deselect specific stuff, which got already displayed here, like the profit column, so it won't get displayed anymore, or any other things. Then we also have the reset table. So if you have changed anything in here, like you have removed something or you have added something, click on reset table and it gets back set it to the default settings. Okay. Then we also have the create profession groups. Yeah. When we click on that, we get the chat message: TradeSkillMaster Enchanting Group updated with 71 items and 28 materials. So actually we have created a TradeSkillMaster profession group which contains all the recipes I can craft currently, so all the recipes in here. And also we got a subgroup with 28 materials, and these are the materials which are needed if I may want to craft some of the recipes in here, okay? We could also have a little look here. This is the enchanting group, so the main group of TradeSkillMaster with a subgroup, and the subgroup contains all the items I could craft. And here as examples, so everything. And also we have the materials group, which just contains all of the materials we would need in order to craft one of these random items, okay? But personally, I wouldn't recommend to create your groups like that, because you may also have some items in here you can't craft, or you don't even want to craft because people wouldn't buy them. You know what I mean? So you would also have items which aren't sellable, like the old Dragonflight quest items, so you wouldn't need them in your queue, in your group currently, okay? You could still use this little option here and filter the group here, so you could select anything you don't want to have in your group, so anything you don't want to sell and you don't want to craft later on with a crafting operation, okay? But first of all, I would say we delete the group in here and we move to the next part, and this is the restock group. Here you can restock your crafting groups, so your profession groups, okay? Like I said before, you could also attach a crafting operation to your group, and there you define the minimum and the maximum amount of items you would like to recraft if you run out of order of them, you know. But you could also assign your minimum profit, but we're gonna talk about the crafting operation not in this video. So you select or deselect any group in here. You could also here select all or deselect all, or open or close all the groups if you have some subgroups, like I have showed you before in the enchanting group, okay? Then we got the queue. This is if you have added something manually or with the crafting operation, like here. Then you got the amount you would like to craft currently. How many could you already craft? One is I have the materials left for the inside craft. But you also have the little information in here, and there you get some data like the average crafting cost of all the items which got added to your queue, then the estimated profit amount, and also the estimated time you have to invest in order to craft all the stuff in your crafting queue. Okay, then you could also press the craft next button, or if you have done it in your macro tab, you could also craft the next one if you just scroll your mouse wheel down or up, or if you have assigned the macro to one of your buttons in here, okay? But we're gonna clear out our queue here. Then we have coffee again. We have the report button. We're gonna talk about the report button. Okay, we're gonna talk about the first tab in here of the report button. This is the craft tab, okay? You have all recipes in here displayed of all your professions, but you could also select any specific profession of a specific character on your current realm or on your current faction. Okay? Keep in mind, you always get crafting information, you only get crafting information when you are on the same realm and on the same faction mentioned at the start, okay? And it's the same with all the displayed recipes here. So we got my enchanter recipes, but we also got displayed our engineering of my character Barako, but also other professions on Blackmore Alliance, okay? So we also have the information here on the shopcraftable items, because we also have some items which aren't sellable at the auction house because they are soulbound or any stuff like this. And if you want to filter them, you just click on this here, and then you only get the recipes or the crafted items displayed which are saleable at the auction house. Okay? So we remove that here because we also have some columns in here, like the DB region sale rate, the average profit, the item value, and the crafting cost. Then you could also, what I don't recommend at all, create groups from tables. So you create the same groups like we did before, but here based on our profession or based on the profession you have selected in here. Okay? Then you could also add or remove specific columns in here, like you may want to add operation source of any of your TradeSkillMaster operation, the crafting cost, the item value, profit amount, but you could also include other sources or custom sources you have created before. So you could also add the vendor buy price, the vendor sell price, the item level, or also the num inventory data. And the num inventory is the same like the little TradeSkillMaster general info. So the inventory information counts 2 in total, and this is the num inventory information. Okay? Then you could also lock the columns in here or unlock these. You could also, if you have added or removed any of the columns in here, you could also reset the table so it's back to default. Okay? Then another thing you could do in here in your craft tab is you could also left click on any of these crafted recipes, crafted items. Okay? So if you left click on it, you will add another amount of it here in the level bar. But if you right click on it, you could also remove a stack. Okay? But what it actually does is it's also add the items to your crafting queue. So you could also, beside the crafting operation or the manually adding here of the items, you could also add the items from your crafting tab in here, even of professions you don't have actually on this character. So you have them on an old character. Okay? And this is the way how you could also add items to your crafting queue. You could also sort them here, so maybe I only want to have the first lines here displayed with items which gives some profit currently. So you add these here as example, of course. But we're gonna clear this little one in here, and we have a little look about the item value. So give me a good item value for a little test calculation. We have the Enchant Boots Planesrunner Breeze. Okay. And the item value is currently at 160 gold and 55 silver. Good morning. But how does the 160 gold 55 silver actually gets calculated? And this is based on one specific calculation in your crafting tab. I mentioned it before in my first video, we have to talk about the crafting tab in here when we talk about the professions. And the little number in here, the 160 gold 55 silver, gets calculated based on the default craft value method. So whenever you want to craft an item, okay, TradeSkillMaster takes the item you want to craft and catches the value of it based on this calculation. First, dB min buyout, dB market, multiplicated with 0.95. So what is the function first with the bracket icons? It's likewise the same, okay, not the same like min, but first picks the first valid value inside the brackets, and it will take this value always as long as it's valid. So let's say all your items got a value of the DB min buyout information. So it's likely 99% that all of your items in here have a DB min buyout. We would always use the DB min buyout value. So as example here, the 169 gold, and we also multiplicate this value with 0.95, because if you sell this item, you don't get the 169 gold in your mailbox. You also get an auction house cut of 5%, and we want to consider these 5% already in our profit field. And this is why we multiplicate it with 0.95. Okay, but let's say we want to craft an item which doesn't have a min buyout information. Then db min buyout in our calculation would become invalid, and the first function moves to the next source and have a look on it if this is a valid source. Okay, so let's say the min buyout wouldn't be given in here because the item wasn't posted on my realm, so if it's not posted it doesn't have a db min buyout. Then we move to the market value, so the db market, and instead of the missing buyout, min buyout data, we use the value of the db market and multiplicate it with 0.95 in order to get the value of the item we want to craft. Okay, so we make a little calculation to have a look if the calculation from TradeSkillMaster is correct. So the min buyout is valid, so we take the 169 gold and we multiplicate it with 0.95, and the result is 160 gold and 55 silver. TradeSkillMaster calculation is correct. Okay, alrighty. Now we have the default price configuration, default material cost method. This is the string on how TradeSkillMaster calculates all your material costs. So the material price, the price you would have to pay for a material or item in order to craft something. Okay, I also mentioned that that the default material cost method is a bit adjusted by me. I use min, db recent, db market, crafting, and vendor buy. I copy this little string in here and we keep it to the reset. So this is the default string, min, db market, crafting, vendor buy, and convert. We already talked about the convert value. It's like if you use 3 lesser essences in order to craft or to convert it into 1 greater essence. This would be the convert value then, okay? But I personally don't want to deal with the convert value at all, because first of all I would like to do in here is removing the convert source in this calculation. Of course, there's nothing wrong with the default one. You could also use the convert value for the consideration of your material prices, but personally I don't want to deal with the vendor buy with the convert value at all. Then we would have left min, db market, crafting, vendor buy. So the min function, pretty simple explained again, you take the lowest value inside the bracket and then you define it based on that what's your material price. So let's say the db market source is currently cheaper than the vendor buy or the crafting information, then we would use db market as our material price. So every single item or material which is needed currently for one of your recipe gets displayed in this list in here, including your material prices of each. And the string calculates the material cost. So let's say in here, the missive of the fever flare has a material cost of 152 gold and 75 silver. And this is actually based on the db market, so the market value, because I don't know how to craft this item, so crafting is invalid for my calculation, and you also can't buy it at a vendor, so the vendor buy is also invalid. So the only valid source in here is the db market, and based on that the material price is the same like the db market. Okay? But I have also changed another thing in my default material cost method. I also would like to use db recent for my material cost calculation. I also explained db recent a bit in my first video too. The db recent is a bit more, I would say, accurate compared to the db market when it goes to fast moving items, or especially the war within items. So the war within materials or items you may need in order to craft something. Because let's say you have war within or rank 3. The prices may change within a few hours already from, let's say, 30 gold to 25 gold. An hour later is it back from 25 to 26 gold, then again 30 gold, and so on. So the prices changes like every time over and over again. And that's why I would like to also consider the db recent, because the db recent is the average price based on the last snapshot of the Blizzard API, which gets updated at around every hour. And the db market, already explained too, is the market value based on the average prices from the past 14 days. Okay, so my intention behind this calculation is pick the db recent for the war within related items and also for any other items, because you may have bought items way cheaper than the current db market. So we could have a look on, do I have it here? Yeah, Bismuth rank 3. The market value is at 71 gold and 16 silver, but it's not accurate if we compare the current min buyout price of 56 gold. So we would not like to use the market value if it's higher than the db recent value, because the recent value is a bit more accurate, like I said before, and the recent value, db recent, is at 58 gold and 32 silver. And so the material cost also displays a 58 gold and 32 silver, because the db recent is cheaper than db market, crafting, and vendor buy. So if you want to use TradeSkillMaster crafting for the war within, I would suggest to at least consider db recent too, or overall to remove the db market at all and just use the db recent instead of the db market. Okay, but I also consider db market in here because one specific reason. I also craft transmog items from old expansions, and these materials don't move that fast, so the prices compared to the war within stuff. Okay, so you may have some old bars or ores with the same price for 3-4 weeks. Okay, maybe with some different changes, but not like here the db market of 71 gold and the recent value of 58 gold. Okay, so the price is kinda the same compared to the recent value on old expansion materials. But if someone tries to reset a material, let's say volatile fire from Cataclysm, the recent value would be set way more higher to the db market. So let's say someone resets volatile fire. Could also have a look on volatile fire in here. I don't have it here, give me a second. Volatile fire, here we have a market value of 15 gold and 6 silver, but if someone wants to reset the volatile fire in here and the price would stay at, let's say, 86 gold, then the db recent would also stood at that range of around 86 gold. But since I have bought these materials weeks or months ago in order to craft my transmog items, I would have a lower value compared to the recent value then. So I would like to also consider the market value still, which is then still at around 15 gold, so maybe still around the value I have bought these items weeks ago. And I would also still use a lower value in order to calculate all the material cost then. Okay? So this is my meaning behind the calculation of my own default material cost method. So I'm gonna repeat it one more time in here. If you don't want to change anything at all, just use the default one, okay? If you don't play the war within at all with your profession, so you maybe just want to craft mounts or pets or old Tome of Illusions for weapon enchants as example, just use DB Market, Crafting and Vendor Buy, okay? I got a brain like, have I mentioned again why I remove the convert? Also, if you don't want to use the convert value in consideration for your material price, remove the convert DB market source 2 like I did before here now. But also, if you want to use the TSM crafting for the war within, you may want to consider DB recent 2, DB recent. If you only want to use Profession for the War Within, you may also want to remove the DB market at all, and you'd only use DB Recent, Crafting and Vendor by then instead, okay? But if you don't want to use the War Within and you just want to craft all stuff, just use DB market here, okay? I'm gonna paste my string in here now too, and then we also have explained the default material cost methods. I'm not good at explaining it all when it goes to stuff like that, but I hope you understood what I mean with the definition of the default material cost method and the default craft value method. Okay, if you still have some questions left or if you're confused like me right now, just ask your question if you haven't understand anything in here, okay? So, now we know how to define a value of an item we want to craft, and we know how to define the material cost of every item in TradeSkillMaster. But how do we calculate our profit or our loss of an item? Like here, the crafting cost is 41 gold and 10 silver, and the profit is a loss of 36 gold and 35 silver. Pretty simple here. Crafting cost is just all the material cost, which got calculated previously, getting multiplied with the amount of materials you need. So we use the material cost of chromatic dust here, multiplied it with 8, and the result is 16 gold and 82 silver. We also need 3 of the reborn shards, so we use the material cost, calculated of that string in here, multiplied it with 3, and then we also got the material cost of 24 gold and 29 silver, okay? So, what it does now, let's say we have the chromatic dust here and the reburned shard. We also have the item value. And the item value got calculated in here, so 4 gold and 75 silver, because the min buyout is valid, so we calculate 5 gold from the min buyout, multiplied with 0.995, and this would result the 4 gold and 75 silver in here. So, to make a little example, of course, so we have the item value of that item we would like to craft, 4 gold and 75 silver. We also have the crafting cost. The crafting cost is 34 gold and 80 silver. So we remove the crafting cost from the current item value of that item we like to craft. And here you see it's a loss of 30 gold and 5 silver, so like the profit amount in here. Okay, so the calculation in here is correct too, and this is how TradeSkillMaster always calculates your profit, your loss, your item value, and also the material prices of each item. Okay, so before we move into the gathering tab, we would have to have a last look on the material tab in here. So we have some items which don't have a material cost. So, like the quest items, but that's not important at all, okay? So if the quest items don't have a material price, no worries. But we have some specific materials which doesn't have any material cost because none of the values in here are currently valid. So you may need a material which isn't buyable at the auction house, so it doesn't have a DB reset, or it also doesn't have a DB market value. You can't craft that item, and you also can't buy that item on the auction house. To give you an example of this, I would have to move to my second account here. This is my Death Knight, which is able to craft my transmog items, okay? And if you have played Battle for Azeroth, okay, you may know the Exposum material in here. And Exposum itself doesn't have a material cost currently because you can't craft Exposum, you can't buy it at a vendor, and you also can't buy it at the auction house. So, since we have missing a material price on that item here as example, we also don't get any crafting cost information, and we also don't get any profit or loss information since we are missing the Exposum material price, okay? So, in case you need a material cost which isn't given by TradeSkillMaster itself, you would have to go to the report tab, material, and then you search for the material which doesn't have a material cost, okay? So here Exposum doesn't have a material cost because the DB reset, the DB market, crafting and vendor buy is invalid. So all 4 sources. So you can remove the string in here, so the default one which got assigned in the TSM Crafting-Tab of the settings. And here you could use either a fixed gold value like 500 gold as example, so you're using Exposum for a material cost of 500 gold in each craft. So you also see the TSM Crafting got in it a material cost now. And then you could also move for the Exposum here again, and then you see also now all the items where Exposum is needed has a profit information also in their item tooltip, okay? So here Exposum, we need 3 of them since we have added 500 gold as material price. We multiplied it with 3, so 1500 gold is the price of 3 Exposum in our craft, okay? But we could also do a little advanced mode when it goes to define the material price of Exposum, okay? So instead of a fixed gold value, you could also use a custom string in order to calculate specific stuff, okay? So, if you have played Battle for Azeroth, you may know that you get around 1 Exposum if you scrap around 7 items, okay? And like I said before, we could also use the craft tab in here, so we have a look on every item which we are able to craft on the realm and the faction. And you could also maybe craft a Battle for Azeroth related item which isn't that expensive when it goes to crafting it, okay? So what about the Tide Spray linen bracers? We need 7 items on average to get 1 Exposum, so I could also craft 7 Tide Spray linen bracers in order to get 1 of them, okay? And the crafting cost of them are below 4 gold, currently at 3 gold and 70 silver. So what I need in here now, in order to make a calculation, we need the item ID of the Tide Spray linen bracers. So I use /dump, then this little icon, I don't know how to pronounce it in English. Then I shift left click on that item in here, then I use the icon here again, and then I hit enter, and then you get the message in here, the item of 154692. This is the item ID of the Tide Spray linen bracers, okay? So I go back to the material tab, search again for Exposum, and since we need around 7 items in order to get 1 Exposum, I enter in here 7 multiplied with a source of crafting. So I want to multiplicate the crafting source by 7 in order to get the average price of my exposum. But still we would have to define what kind of crafting source would we like to multiplicate. In this case, the crafting source of the tide spray linen bracers. In order to do that, you enter in here the open bracket icon. I double point stands for item ID, and then we enter the item ID of the linen bracers out of our chat. 154692. Then the close bracket icon, and we save and close the file, and then you get the material cost of 25 gold and 93 silver. And this is calculated based on the crafting cost of the item of tide spray linen bracers multiplied by 7, because we need around 7 for one exposum. Okay, so step done. So if you need a material cost of a specific item and you would have to adjust the default string, the default calculation on specific ones, just search for them in here, enter a keyword like exposum and left click on that. Okay, so whenever you want to change something here manually, just hit on the material and change the file in here in order to change the material cost calculation. Okay, also if you have done that, you could also use the filter. The default price filter is you only get the items displayed in here, the materials displayed, which still have the default price calculation in here, so you haven't adjusted them like we did on exposum. Okay, you could also select all by default, so everything gets displayed, but you could also use the custom price filter, so you only get the materials displayed in here where you have adjusted something. Of course, if you want to change that back to default, just press reset to default, save and close. Okay, so I'm gonna add the string again to exposum for my crafts in here in order to use the crafting source there too. And we are done here. Okay, so a little weird cut in here. I forgot something in the crafting tab to explain, of course. Ignore the percentage amounts in here. It is for the next step I'm gonna explain too. We have the inventory option. Ignore characters and ignore guilds. So you could also ignore specific characters or specific guild banks when it goes to gathering materials you still have left in order to craft the items in your queue, or also ignore characters if they have materials left in their bank or in their bag in order to craft the items. But you could also, you will also ignore already crafted items on these characters. So let's say the text in here, select characters which crafting should ignore the inventory of 4 materials and crafted items. So the main goal is, of course, at the end of our journey to have a TSM group which restocks itself based on the crafting operation. Okay, and let's say you want to craft a maximum of these illusions of 2, but you have 2 already on another character which gets displayed in the inventory information, but you don't want to consider this character in order to make a restock. Then you would have to ignore that character in this little list here, because let's say I have a second one in here, so I got another 2 on my old character. I wouldn't craft anything as long as I don't sell these items or I remove them from the inventory data. Okay, we're gonna talk about the inventory and the restock in my not in the next video, but we're gonna talk about it, of course, where I explain a little bit more about the restock and the inventory information, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. Okay, so this is the definition behind the options. Ignore guilds and ignore character. Just ignore materials and already crafted items on other alts or on other guild banks if you want to. Personally, of course, I don't have anything ignored in here. So Now we move to the last part of the video, and this is important too. We have the gathering tab. So we have the default material cost method. We know how to calculate every mat price of every item or material, but we also have to add some sources when it goes to how do we get the materials which are needed for the crafting queue, okay? So we go in here, primal, air, let's add one here manually, from the earth to fire and frost. Now when we move back to the gathering tab, we have a materials together. We need awakened air, awakened earth, fire and frost still. We need 4, 8, 9 and 10, and we already have 16, 12, 11 and 10 left on our bank, like the inventory already displays in here, okay? So, first of all, we got the crafter, BB Cat, and also the profession selected enchanting for the materials which are still needed in order to craft everything in here. You also see I got the resonant crystals still left in my bank for all the crafts, so of course I don't get them displayed in here. Then we got the source tab. Which sources would you like to include in order to get the materials? Source number 1 would be, in my case, my guild bank. If I have some materials left on my guild bank, which may be needed for the craftings, I would like to move them out of my bank instead of rebuying them from the auction house. Okay, so I consider my guild bank. If you don't want to consider the guild bank on your own, you could also click on it and then press the remove button. Of course, source number 2 would be the vendor. If you need materials which getting sold by a vendor, of course you would like to visit the vendor and buy it there instead of the auction house. So source number 2, of course, the vendor. Source number 3 would be alts. Do you have some awakened air maybe left on your alt character? Yes, okay, then move to the alt char, send it to your crafter, and you're done too. I would like to consider my alt banks and bags too, of course, but if you don't want to do that, of course, click on remove. The next part is craft profitable. So if it's currently cheaper to craft a specific material instead of buying the material, then I would like to craft it. Example here, you have an inscription. You would like to craft a missive, a stat roll. You need inks, but you could also craft the inks with the pigments. So if the craft itself is cheaper as buying the inks based on DB recent or DB market, you would like to buy the pigments instead and craft the inks, but only if it's profitable. So let's say the pigments itself are not cheaper than the current state of the DB market or DB recent of the ink, you will buy the inks instead of crafting them, because it would be a loss to craft them, okay? Then we got the source number 5, and this is the auction house. Let's say if the craft isn't profitable, like source number 4, you would like to buy the materials from the auction house, of course, in order to craft all the stuff from your crafting queue. So crafting inks isn't profitable, okay, I would like to buy the inks then based on DB recent or the DB market, depending on which one of both is the cheapest one. And that's it. That is my source priority. You could also select any other things you like the old guild bank. If you have some other guild banks left, would you like to consider them? Go for it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Craft unprofitable is the same like craft profitable, but you would also craft it even if it's not worth it actually, based on the other material prices in order to craft that ink. And also AHA crafting is likewise the same with converting items. So you would also consider to buy 3 lesser essences in order to convert them to 1 greater essence, but I wouldn't suggest to also add the AHA crafting, the auction house crafting in here as source 2. Same goes for the auction house disenchanting. That's likewise the same, also like the convert value. You buy green or blue armor items or weapons in order to disenchant them, and the materials you get from that, you will use these then for the crafting queue. But I wouldn't spend that much time on scanning items, disenchanting all the stuff first, and then crafting all the stuff in the queue. So I would like to avoid these parts, so I don't add these sources into my priority at all. Okay, so we start with the next part of the gathering. Of course, we would have to visit the auction house right now in order to buy the awakened materials for the crafting queue. But before we do that, we close the profession window, visit the auction house, and I have already showed you the Browse-Tab in my first video. We also got the Browse-Sniper-Tab, and we talked about the market value price source of DB market. So if you do a browse scan in here, like the Plunder Blade of Northern Kings, and it displays 80%, that means that 39,899 gold is currently 80% of the DB market value of around 50,107 gold. Okay, but if we open the profession book again, we open the task list in here, and then we get a to-do list. So here you find the stuff you may have to do in order to craft your stuff. You go to the auction house again, and then you go to the Browse-Tab too, and then you can hit the scan all button. We do that, and we also get a percentage amount in here, but this time it's not the percentage amount based on DB market which got assigned in the setting here. The percentage amount this time is calculated based on the crafting calculation for our material price. So this way I have made this 100% everywhere here, because the material cost method calculates it always by 100% DB recent, 100% DB market, 100% crafting, and 100% of the vendor by value. And let's have a look on the Awakened Earth. Let's say our material cost of it is currently at 50 gold, which means the recent value of 50 gold is our material cost. So the 98% displays that 49 gold of the current cheapest auction is 98% of our DB recent value. So it's 98% overall from our material cost. Okay, then we could also have a look in here. Do we have anything where the market value is currently the... No, it's not. Okay, but just to repeat that, the percentage amount when you do a gathering search is not based on the selected source on your Browse and Sniper setting. It's just the percentage amount based on our material cost. Okay, so based on our mat price. And of course, you likely don't want to buy the materials you need for above 100% of DB recent or DB market, because the calculation itself would get wrong then, because you buy the mats way higher than it got calculated. So if you buy them cheaper, of course, it's better for you because you make more profit than it gets displayed in your profession tab. But I would suggest to not buy items at above 100% of your material cost calculation. Let's say you want to craft something where the profit of the item itself is at 5,000 gold, 6,000 gold. Okay, you could also buy materials maybe if the percentage amount is at 102 or 105%, okay? It's not that good at all, but let's say the profit amount is extremely high, you could also consider to pay a little bit more than the 100% of our material cost method. But let's say you craft something where the profit amount is extremely low, like maybe 5 gold, 8 gold, 15 gold for each craft. I wouldn't suggest to buy any materials above 100% in that case then. Okay? So if the profit amount is low, just stick to the 100%, but if you craft something where the profit amount is extremely high, over 5,000 gold, over 10,000 gold, you may also could consider to buy materials at around 102 or 105% of the current calculation. Okay, so since we have made the little scan here, we're gonna repeat the scan in order to buy the materials. Okay, we go to the Browse-Tab, we hit the Scan All button. Then we will find all the materials which we still need for the crafting queue. We click on Awakened Earth, hit Buyout, and here you have already assigned the quantity which is needed. So we need 8 of the earth in order to craft all the items. Here also contains auctions above your material values. So here you already get the notification that the current unit price is at above your material cost calculation, okay? But for that video, we're gonna make a little example here and just buy them off. Also, Awakened Frost, we need 10 of them. We hit Buyout. 10 is automatically assigned in here. Now the unit price would be 102%. No, let's do it still in here, but like I said before, if the profit margin is extremely low, don't do it, please. Then Buyout again. Quantity is at 4. Let's buy them out too. And Awaken Fire, we need 9 of them. So here we would buy some for 97% of the material cost and something for 100% already. So here that contains auctions about the material value gets still displayed. Even, okay, that's a bug. The average buy price is 98% of the calculation, but it still displays that it contains it above your actual material value. But this is wrong, just buy them in that case here too. Okay, so now we got the materials and the task list is closed too. So we visit the mailbox, then we click off all board or open all mail. And then we can visit the profession 2. So the materials together is empty because we have everything in our bag, so in our bank, in order to craft this stuff. This is just a display bug. We currently have everything in our bags in order to craft these items. So if we craft one here, we need something. Give me a second. What do we need in order to craft it? Primer, primer air, we need the what? Okay, we need the table. Then we fly to the table in here. And then you get the craft bar. And if we have crafted this, the queue gets updated. Give me a second. There. And then you also see it's just a visual bug, of course. You can craft the next one. So click on the Craft Next button or scroll your mouse wheel, of course, if you have set your mouse wheel macro brain deck to the Craft Next button too. Okay, so if you have assigned it to mouse wheel up or mouse wheel down, you could also use the mouse wheel in order to craft the next item in your queue. Then we scroll or we press the button until everything is done. And then you also have the items in your bag and the queue is empty. Alright, then we would have to group all these items and such, but we won't do it in this video here, of course, it's already way too long. So I would say I'm done with the next video in here. We explained our profession window, we explained the crafting tab, gathering tab, and also the report tab of crafts and materials. In my next video, we're gonna talk about the grouping system, how to create TSM groups. So we're gonna talk about the TSM group tab, on how to add maybe a different item variation to a group if you want to consider specific variations only when it goes to posting items or cancel these items. But we will also have a look on how to maybe import groups or import item IDs to TradeSkillMaster, and also we have a look on the base group. But first of all, I would like to say thanks for watching, of course. Have a beautiful day, have much fun with gold making, and we'll see us in the next video.